every single player in that locker room grew up watching Bobby Wagner be great. And you combine that with the humility he has, combine that with the fact that part of the reason he's great is the way he works and the leader that he is by example, nevertheless by voice. And why wouldn't you want this guy back? Change of plans because we have tremendous breaking news on the Hoffman Show. Team 980, always live as well on the free Odyssey app. Streaming live on YouTube too at the Team 980. And we got Commanders breaking news. The Washington Commanders have re-signed linebacker Bobby Wagner per the NFL Network's Ian Rappaport and Mike Garafolo. It is an $8 million guaranteed, $9.5 potential total with incentives, $1 million deal. And Bobby Wagner is back for Washington. That is obviously enormous news. And there goes $8 million of your cap space spent very, very, very well. The way I've described Bobby Wagner when I talk about him to folks is he is a force multiplier on this team. It's hard to measure his impact because, yes, he himself, in a vacuum, performed well enough last year to be a second-team All-Pro. Okay? That is difficult to do. Washington has not had many All-Pro players, period, the last 2 decades. He did it last year. He led the NFL in tackles 2 years ago. He is still very productive. And when you watch the tape, yes, there are limitations. Yes, he's not as rangy as he used to be. Yes, he is still someone who has some limitations in coverage. You're not necessarily putting him in man-to-man situations against the best tight ends in the league or the best running backs in the league. But if you can get the blocks up front, he will make the tackle in the run game. When they were good for long stretches of this season against the run, and I know it was a very up and down season, but strong up and down, or strong on the upside, right? He's the guy that's at the center of it all. But the thing that's hard to measure is how much better he makes everyone else. Okay, Bobby Wagner is a guy who gets everybody in the right position and you in the optimal play basically every snap because we've been playing for a lot of years and is very in tune with what this coaching staff wants defensively, and he's seen every single look that an offense can throw at him. So on a baseline level, if defense is more about assignment and alignment than any other facet, then isn't getting a guy who always knows his assignment, who constantly reminds everyone else of theirs and gets you aligned properly basically every snap worth a fair amount of value? Answer is yes to me. And that's before you get to who Bobby Wagner is as a person. Bobby Wagner is a humble leader who just set the standard in the locker room. Like trying to explain, like the way that other players talk about Bobby is hard. The only word I can think of is reverence. Like there is a reverence for who that guy is. Because it's not every day that you have someone in your locker room who's a bona fide, without a question, first ballot Hall of Famer. Someone who was legitimately the best player at his position for basically an entire decade. That's who Bobby Wagner has been. There's been other guys up there with him, back to like Patrick Willis when young Bobby Wagner was ascending to the top of the position. And then, ironically enough, out there in the NFC West, Fred Warner is the guy that is probably considered the best in the business now, who kind of took the throne from Wagner. But Bobby spanned that entire time, and every single player in that locker room grew up watching Bobby Wagner be great. And you combine that with the humility he has, combine that with the fact that part of the reason he's great is the way he works and the leader that he is by example, nevertheless by voice. And why wouldn't you want this guy back? And I said this after the Commanders traded for Deebo. Deebo Samuel, I think he is made of a lot of the right stuff. He's super competitive. He's super physical. He has been a big part of good locker rooms. His teammates love him, but he's a little rough around the edges. There was you can't deny the incident that we all saw on the sideline last year where he got after Jake Moody, the Niners kicker, and their long snapper stepped in, and then Debo slapped the long snapper. We know that Marshawn Lattimore can be a little prickly. Like, there's some personalities in this locker room that having a guy like Bobby Wagner around helps. And so if you want to take on, I don't want to call it risk, but like if you want to invite more personality into your locker room, which often happens with inviting more great players in, you want to make sure that there is an unquestioned leader. And you want to make sure that leader is ready to handle it. That you can't, if you're Debo, if you're Marshawn, if you're anyone who steps into that locker room, you got to go through Bobby. And there is no one outside of if they were to trade for Myles Garrett whose resume can step to Bobby Wagner. And so when we talk about Bobby Wagner, the player, could you theoretically upgrade on him? Yes. I think if you signed Ernest Jones, who replaced Bobby after a trade with the Rams last year in Seattle, he started the season in LA, wasn't going great, traded Seattle, finished really, really strong. He's younger. He's like 20. He's somewhere between 25 and 27. I don't remember it off the top of my head. But like he's one of these rare, like, oh, that dude's a free agent? Wow. Okay. He's pretty good. Probably might be an upgrade. Certainly in some areas, coverage, range, etc. He's an upgrade over Bobby Wagner as a player. But I don't think he upgrades everyone else the way Bobby does. And that's before specifically we even mentioned what he meant for Jaden, who is the most important person in your franchise. And maybe by year 3, at that point, Jaden will be in his mid-20s. You know, Jaden was an older draft pick. By the time he's 25 years old, this year he'll be 24. By the time he's 25, 26, he'll be ready to fully take on that leadership role. And Mike Sainristil will be able to fully take on that leadership role. They'll have multiple NFL seasons under their belt. They'll be getting closer to getting paid. But for right now, if you can get one more season of Bobby, and I would assume that soon, before Monday, Zach Ertz also re-signs. If you can get those two and keep your leadership council intact for one more season, I think it's worth it. Because while they made the NFC Championship game last year, and they should be doing things from a roster standpoint to try to get back, they are still building something for the long term. And because they are only, despite their success, 1 year in, they are still in a foundation building phase. Some of that is roster. They need another draft class that can be the foundation of what they want to do in the long term from a talent standpoint. But they're also still establishing standards and establishing the way that things are done, establishing the way that things are communicated within the building. And having Bobby around for one more year of that is so incredibly valuable for what it means for Mikey, what it means for Jaden, what it means for Terry, what it means for any other leaders that may emerge. They have one of the best examples in the league. And then I think the other part of this on the field is you now have another year where you don't have to spend money on a linebacker, and you can see, because they really like Jordan McGee, if McGee can split time with Bobby, and I'm not talking a 50-50, but can like McGee get some series a couple times a game or play next to Bobby in certain sets, obviously be with him in the meetings and be healthy this year, where could that 5th round pick a year from now be the guy that they go, yep, we got us one. He's a starter. We're good. And if not, then who knows? Maybe if Bobby goes out and plays like he did last year, then maybe they re-sign him again to a 1-year deal. Or they finally go younger at that position in the future, but Bobby will have set the standard, and you'll know about McGee more than you did in what was a pretty injury-plagued, lost first season for the rookie out of Temple. So, all in all, summary, hell yeah on Bobby Wagner. Very excited that he is returning, and it is a 1-year, $8 million deal, incentives up to $9.5 million per Ian Rappaport and Mike Garafolo of the NFL Network. And by the way, good job to Bobby's agent on that deal. If you don't know, Bobby's agent is Bobby. Negotiated himself. So he gets to keep all that. No 3% or whatever it is to the agent, Anthony. Nice if you can do it.
He's a smart man, dog. He's a smart man. Getting his, what is he getting his back not his bachelor.
Masters at Howard.
Yeah, so, and look, he know what he's doing, man. Setting himself up for life after football and
financially, educationally.
Yeah.
I didn't get to talk to Bobby as much as I wanted to this year. I just wasn't around as much because we were so busy doing everything here and training camp. Like obviously everyone was trying to get him, but like I got to talk to him a couple times, like post game locker room and stuff. Pro, like just so kind, so human. Like there's some guys that have a humility about them where they're just very approachable. And Bobby's one of those guys. He could be like, I'm Bobby Wagner. I ain't talking to you.
It's so funny you say that, Craig, because so I saw Bobby down at the Pro Bowl.
Yeah.
And so I don't go to a lot of games. You know, I go down to the locker room here and there. And last year in one of the locker room scrums, I had Bobby like by myself, and he remembered when I, interviewed him and asked him a couple of questions, and he vividly remembers, because you were just talking about how approachable he was.
Yeah.
Well, he vividly remembers me, shaking the phone, like being nervous a little bit. He's like, I don't know why you was shaking this stuff, man. I'm nothing to be scared of.
He's like, you're Bobby Wagner. He's like, yeah, I'm Bobby.
Yeah.
Nice to meet you.
Yeah, that's funny.
That's a great story. So yeah, breaking news. Bobby Wagner back with the Commanders. It is a 1-year deal worth up to $9.5 million. A couple more thoughts on that on the way out, and real things next.
What's up, kiddos? It's your boy Clinton Yates from ESPN. It's the Hoffman Show on the Team 980. Tell your mama I said what's up.